So now it's time to start working with our functions.php. First thing we're going to do, we're going to require two files. So require once the first file we're going to require is going to be our dbase.php file. And the next one, if we copy this, is going to be config.php. This way we have all of the constants and functions, variables, whatever is inside of dbase and config available inside of the functions.php file. After this, we've created two new lines. Now we are going to convert our URL parameters into the variables. So let's put a comment here, convert URL parameters to variables. And we're going to create the initial variable p, and we're going to assign the default value of index. This way, whenever the page first loads, the first page which will be shown will be the page with the identity of index. Now we're going to create the if statement. If is set get, then we are going to loop through all of the parameters. So we're doing the for each loop and for each get as key equals value. Curly, opening curly and closing curly brace. Now we create the if statement inside of this for each loop. If isn't empty because only parameters which have value assigned to them are what we are interested in. So if value isn't empty, then create the variable, so $, two curly braces, and the name of the parameter, which is a key, equals, and we trim the white spaces from our value. Okay, so this will create the variables where the name of the variable is the name of the parameter, and the value assigned to this variable will be the value assigned to the parameter. Next thing will be the function which will prepare our SQL statements for interaction with the database. So prepare for SQL interaction. So we start with a function. This is our first function here, and we call this function SQL escape. And this function will take just one parameter, which will be the value which we want to prepare for the SQL insertion or interaction with the SQL database, MySQL database. So if statement PHP version is lower than version 6, then value equals get magic quotes GPC question mark strip slashes and strip slashes from our value. Otherwise, just trim value. Basically, what it does, it assigns to the value variable, it recreates it, and checks if get magic quotes GPC are available, the function is available. If it is, then we simply strip slashes from our value. If it's not, then we trim the value, trim the white space from the end of the value and assign this to our new value variable. Okay, now that we've done this, next thing after this if statement will be another if statement, and now function exists, and the name of the function which we want to check whether it exists is MySQL real escape string. And if this function exists, then we want value to be filtered through it. So MySQL real escape string, and we put our value inside of it. Else we are going to assign our value put our value to the function called MySQL escape string. And obviously, again, we're passing our value to it. And eventually, we simply return our filtered value. So this function will take care of all of our values, which we will be passing onto the SQL statement. Next function will be called function fetch1, which will fetch just one record, and we pass in a SQL statement to this function. Now let's put some comments here. Populate single record. Okay, and inside of this function, we're going to globalize our variable of the connection to the database. The variable which stores the connection to the database, so conDB. And after this globalization, let's type MySQL select DB, and we're going to use our DB underscore name constant, which is inside of the dbase.php file, and our connection, so conDB. Next, we're going to create the record set, MySQL query, and inside of this, we pass in our SQL, which is the parameter which is passed to this function, and then again conDB, which is our connection. Or die, and the message, if it didn't work, let's display database query error dot br, and let's display MySQL error. Okay, so we have our record set. Now we need to check how many rows has been affected. Total equals MySQL num rows, and we need to pass our rs variable, which is our record set. Okay, now what we're doing is we create the if statement. If total is more than 0, then we are going to assign everything to fetch associative array, which is out variable, and we assign MySQL fetch associative, and we are passing our record set to this again. After all this, we are simply typing MySQL free result and rs again. Lastly, we need to return something, so return, and first we do the condition whether it's not empty, our out variable, then obviously pass it to our return function, and otherwise pass null. So, and now we're going to be able to obviously populate one of the records. First we create the SQL statement, and then we simply return all of the values from all of the columns. Okay, so now that we have this one done, next function will be execute SQL, and execute SQL statement function execute SQL, and again we pass in a SQL to it. First we have to globalize our connection, and next thing will be MySQL select DB, same thing. So basically we can actually copy all this together with the rs as well. If we copy and paste inside of it. Okay, database query error as well, it's all fine. After this we simply return if rs hasn't succeeded, which means if there was nothing, then we return false, otherwise we return true. This is just going to check whether the SQL statement has been executed successfully or not, and obviously in the meantime obviously it executes this statement as well. Okay, so now that we have all this, next thing will be to put our content, which we will populate from the database, into the structure of our website. So we're going to create the push content into layout function. So function push layout, and we provide we put the content into it. We pass the content into it. So require once, and what we're going to require is just our header, tmp header.php. As you can see in the previous video, I explained you about all these include paths. Now I only have to provide the name of the file, and then we're going to also require once footer. And in between those two includes, we're going to simply echo our content. Okay, and next function is actually the function which populates the content using one of the previous functions we've created and puts it into our push layout function. But this is what we're going to be looking at in the next video.